Welcome to the Screen Podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Wendy Mitchell. I'm a contributing editor at Screen International and ScreenDaily.com, and we're here offering you insight and analysis of the global film industry. It's a great episode for you today. Screen's deputy editor, Louise Tutt, is talking to Tricia Tuttle, director of the Berlinale. Tricia is somebody that Screen has been following for nearly 2 decades, from her days at BAFTA through to the BFI London Film Festival and to the National Film and TV School before getting this top job in Berlin. Fun fact for you, Tricia is someone I personally met about 30 years ago in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. She was in a band. I was a student journalist. I got to interview her band. Do go check out the band. They're called June. But more focused on Berlin. Tricia is talking to Louise about the challenges of running one of the world's biggest public film festivals while also balancing the needs of the industry, what she learned in the job in that first edition that she's been able to bring around to this year, and of course, a few film highlights you don't want to miss. Plus, if you listen to the end, you get a little treat, Tricia's personal tip for a wine bar in Berlin that has a cool film industry connection too. So, I'm off to start my packing. The forecast looks really cold for Berlin, and I'm going to hand it over to Louise and Tricia.
So, hi, Tricia. Welcome to the Screen Podcast. We know each other a little from your time in London, first at the Script Factory and then at the BFI as deputy head and then head of festivals. And along with many in the UK and international industry, I know you have a deep knowledge and passion for film and the cinema-going experience. And so I was delighted when you took over the big job at the Berlinale, overseeing the festival and the European film market. And amazingly, you became the first female director of any of the big 3 festivals, Berlin, Cannes and Venice. And it's an appointment that really seemed to go down well last year, I think. And, a colleague told me that every time you walked into a room or an event, you were greeted like a rock star. So thank you. I'm very glad you're here with me today to talk about the 2026 Berlinale, your second edition. And I'm going to ask you about the joys and challenges of putting on one of the world's biggest audience film festivals and finding out a little bit more about the films you and your team have scoured the globe to bring to Berlin. And it opens with a really exciting sounding film. Opens on February the 12th, the world premiere of No Good Men, the third film from Afghan director Shabanu Sadat. And it's the first time Sadat has brought a film to the Berlinale, I think. Her first 2 films were at Director's Fortnight, I believe, Wolf and Sheep and The Orphanage. And so let's go straight in, as your second year, what did you learn from last year that you're building on or making sure you don't do again?
Well, last year was a whirlwind. I started on the 1st of April in 2024 and didn't have a whole year really to work on the program, because largely when I started, I also wanted to build an executive team, which I think I spoke to you guys about last year. So it took me about maybe 6 months, first 6 months to get my program team in place, alongside the great teams that we have here already, including section heads for all of the main sections. But I spent a lot of time building that team. So when we finally started working on the program really in earnest, it was late summer, early autumn, which is very, very late. And this year I really wanted to start immediately. Even during the festival, we were already having conversations about this year. So that was a big change. I knew it was going to be like that in my first year because that's the way it goes. This is a role where I not only have the creative oversight of the festival, but also the business oversight. So a lot of the structures that I wanted to put in place were really about allowing me to be able to have that kind of look across all of what we do. But yeah, I didn't want to do that again. I didn't want to go in without a full year of preparation last year.
What was the feedback like from the German industry, from the international industry? What's the industry telling you it wants the festival to be under you?
Yeah, it was very good, very generous. I think there is a sense from lots of people that they recognize the context that we're working in, that this is a big, complex festival where there are many different needs. And I think that's one of the challenges of any big festival, but particularly the Berlinale, because we are a public-facing film festival. huge 340,000 tickets last year, admissions to the festival from our public audience, and another 115 from our industry audience. So really enormous demand and responsibility to serve that public audience. But we also are a major international market with more than almost 20,000 professionals coming across media and all of all the industry. So you can imagine how complex it is. Like, everyone needs and wants something different from the festival. We also have a role to play here in supporting and spotlighting German talent and supporting German exhibitors and German distributors. But at the same time, we are serving a sort of international marketplace as well. So all of those sort of tensions were things that I understood before I came in, but really trying to keep balance in how we serve those different needs and those different stakeholders was something that took a lot of time and thought. So to answer your question very more succinctly, I think the feedback was great. Stakeholders all want something different, and we need to figure out how to prioritize and how to bring things together. And that's one of the things that I'm learning more and more as I do this job.
I know you're passionate about finding and supporting films that can, find that theatrical audience, as you just mentioned, supporting German exhibitors and German distributors as well in your local market there. And you spoke about it, really passionately at the program launch. But how easy is it to find the crossover art house festival films that also, will play to paying audiences around the world? I mean, last year you must have been thrilled with the success of Petra Volpe's Late Shift, which was a special gala last year, I think. In an ideal world, would you love 10 more of those films, 20 more of those films?
I mean, yeah, I think the more we can support distributors and exhibitors to help launch films that can do well with audiences, the better. I mean, we're all trying to find a way. I mean, the big thing is no one knows anything. Films we thought would do well in the autumn season, coming out of the festivals and into the launching into an award season conversation, haven't done as well as we hoped. And I think I think there are lots of things going on. I mean, it's a difficult marketplace. It's a difficult time for the market. I think that it's such a hard time for the market that one of the roles that I think we need to play is supporting those films like last year, Late Shift, Petra Volpe's film, also Ido Fluch's film Con 75 did very well in German-speaking territories. We have seen some films like Blue Moon, which launched with us last year. And of course, a Richard Linklater film is always going to be of interest to an audience, but it's really, really nice to see how that film has gone on and obviously been part of an award season conversation. But also, we're talking about films and we're talking about success on different scales, because there are also films like The Blue Trail, Gabriel Mascaro's film, which, isn't a big, huge international talking point, but it sold really, really well. And it played festivals all over the world. And I know that the sales company was very happy with the performance of that film. So I think sometimes we lose sight when we're looking at a big international festival. We only look at those ones that are traveling at very impactful in an Anglophone context. And they're actually all kinds of levels of success that we want to be able to enable, and keeping that vibrant fauna and flora and that really healthy ecosystem for all kinds of films is part of what the Berlinale can do and does do.
That's a lovely way of putting it, actually. From the outside looking in, it feels like some of the bigger European sales companies hold their big films for Cannes. Is there more that you think they could do to support the Berlinale?
Well, I mean, I think Cannes is a really wonderful film festival. And of course, it has become stronger even in the last 5-6 years since the pandemic. So it's a powerful place to launch a film. I don't blame any sales company or sales agent for wanting to go there. But I think, we need a 12-month year. It's not just about overly focusing on particular festivals. I think it's also the award season is taking up a lot of airtime for a small number of films. I would love to see more marketing. I'd love to see more writing about a wider range of films. But sales agents are hugely supportive of the Berlinale, and we are really important to them as well too. So I think I sometimes think, what else can we do for them? I mean, I feel a real responsibility to help make sure that our platform is as strong as possible so that we can help them launch films into the world. And that's work we have to do. It's not just about asking filmmakers to all of a sudden, you know, forego something that feels like it's been more naturally right for them in the last few years. We need to make our platform as strong as possible so that we can have the kind of impact for films that they need as well.
That's interesting. Can you give an example of how the Berlinale could do more?
Well, I think we are working. There are a million little ways that you can make changes that add up to big impact, I think. So we're working, our press team is working really hard to make sure that we keep the international press coming. Our EFM team is really, really supporting buyers to come to the festival and see work. We're trying to enable buyers to find what they need in lots of different ways. One way is trying to make the distinctions between our sections sharper again, because I felt when I came in that maybe they'd become a little compressed. So it was hard to tell what was encounters or competition or forum or panorama. And I'm working with the section heads to sharpen those so that the right buyers can find the right films. And also, that a sales agent feels like they can launch a film in generation and it can find the right buyers and find the right audience and find the right press. So we're all working together on sharpening our definitions, making sure we get the buyers to the right place and make it easy for them, making sure we get the right press here to write about the films, just making the whole experience as frictionless as possible.
Mm. And I think you mentioned in the program launch again that many of the competition films have lots of rights available. So that should create some lively conversation in the EFM.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, I would say there are things that we wanted to think about, and we heard this from buyers, and we heard this from sellers as well too, that they weren't finding as much that they wanted in the program. And I really heard that, and that doesn't mean we can't change that overnight, because I think little success stories beget more opportunities for the festival. So it'll take time to build the platform as one where we can help sell bigger films as well too. I mean, the EFM is already doing that. The EFM does that, but the gap between what the EFM sells and sells big and the festival program has widened a bit in the last 5-6 years. So Tanya Meisner, who is the head of Berlinale Pro and the director of European Film Market, and I are working with a paper wall between us, because it's the same business, but we also have different objectives and our stakeholders have different needs. But we're really working to make sure that those two sides of the brain work together more strongly. But it really is about evolving the festival, and the more we can do right this year, the better our program is going to be next year.
On a slightly different topic, in January, you spoke to the Germany's Bundestag Culture Committee about how important it is the festival showcases a plurality of voices and perspectives, and it's a place for civilized debate and conversation, and all within Germany's, free speech laws. Following the controversy of the closing night ceremony in 2024, which I don't want to relitigate, and it was the festival, the one before you took over, but we know that there were some Arab filmmakers who were concerned subsequently about playing their films at the Berlinale going forward. And this year I see there are some really interesting Arab voices. There's Leila Bouzid, who's French-Tunisian director with In a Whispering Competition. In Perspectives, you have Chronicles from the Siege by Algerian filmmaker Abdallah Al-Khabtib, and also a really interesting sounding film, Where To, by the German-Israeli filmmaker Asaf Maknas, which is about a Palestinian Uber driver in Berlin and a young Israeli man, his passenger. Is this an ongoing conversation with filmmakers from the Arab world, and would you like to see more of them bring their films here in future years to the Berlinale?
Absolutely. The festival has a really great tradition, a long tradition of screening excellent films from North Africa and the Middle East, and we want to continue that. And I spoke about it publicly, and like you said, I don't necessarily want to go back over it again, but we spoke publicly about how we really needed to rebuild trust with people who felt worried about being able to come here and speak openly. And we did do a lot of talking last year, which was, I think, really effective. We took the sting, the inflammation out of the conversation so that people do trust that this is a platform that values free speech. But we also spent a lot of time talking about, we live in an angry world, and you see that anger and you see the divisions in conversations that happen at festivals around political flashpoints, and that's normal. That's really normal. But we also feel a responsibility to make sure that our platform encourages thoughtful, open dialogue, like it always has done. So we spent a lot of time last year working with our moderators on how to help make conversations sort of healthy and respectful conversations, and that made all of these things made a huge difference, I think, and it built some trust. And we still have to keep doing that, I think, and we will keep doing that. But yeah, I think it's something we take really seriously and we put a lot of energy into. And I think you see the results this year as well too.
Yeah, those films sound really interesting. Looking forward
No,
to seeing them.
they are really
Yeah.
interesting, definitely.
And a couple of nitty-gritty questions. You talk about costs going up for everyone, everything being more expensive, and funding for festivals is harder to raise than ever, and your costs have gone up. In general, what's the festival's budget this year, and is that higher or lower than last year?
It's pretty similar to last year. It's steady. I mean, obviously one of our biggest costs, and it's something that is a little different for us than it is for other festivals, is our staffing costs. Our employees are public employees, so we pay at the government wage, which means also we pay over hours, which is great. And we pay that we give rises every year in line with the rises of government employees. So that is a cost that definitely we can't necessarily control, and it can be quite significant increase for us. But all of our other costs are pretty steady this year. We have a balanced budget. We have it looks good for this year. We obviously every year is a new year, so ask me again next year. But for now, we are in a good position for this year.
Good to hear. It's interesting you say about the government employees. Was that the same as at the London Film Festival, out of interest?
No.
And another question, there's always talk of the festival moving from its main location in Potsdamer Platz. Are there any updates on that? Can you set the record on where you are with that?
We are here for definitely for the next couple of years. No plans to move right now. I think we obviously look at every option because we have a lease through 2027 on working at the Berlinale Palast, and also we have Martin Gropiusbau at some point will have renovations. So we always look. I mean, any city festival has to do this. You have to keep looking. I did the same at London Film Festival. You have to keep looking because you rely on a lot of infrastructure which can change and shift, or ownership can change, size of venues can change, number of seats can change in cinemas. So we always plan ahead. But right now, no plans to leave. And also we spent a lot of energy and we invested a lot last year in trying to rebuild some focal points around the heart of the festival at Marlene Dietrich Platz. And that made a real difference last year. We had around nearly 30,000 additional bodies in Potsdamer Platz. And I think you felt that because we built Blue Max Theatre and the Hub as well too.
So let's now talk a little bit about the films, because there's so much to look forward to in competition, particularly from my point of view personally. There's new film from the Teachers Lounge director Ilka Tatak, Yellow Letters, which I hear is really buzzy. And there's another bold genre film, interestingly, from the Finnish director of Hatching, a woman called Hannah Bergholm, called Nightborn. I'm looking forward to also Anthony Chen's We Are All Strangers, which is a film he wrote during the COVID lockdowns in London, and we talked to him then. And it was presented at the Berlinale in the co-production market in March 2021. And also another, a German director, Eva Trobesch, whose debut, All Good, I loved back in 2018. So I'm really looking forward to her third film, Home Stories, now in competition. Can you talk a little bit about the films in the lineup that you really love personally? I know that you love them all, and about the new talents you've discovered.
Well, obviously, a festival director can't
No.
talk about their personal favorites, and I do love them all. And I think what's great about the competition is how diverse it is. I mean, I'm unusual in that I definitely like so many different kinds of films. What's great about our committee is we all have different tastes as well. So not every one of the 22 films is loved by everyone in the committee, and I love that as well too. But I really said it passionately, and I really mean it. I think there will be something for every film fan to find and discover and love in the competition. It's so diverse. One thing that I'm super proud of, it's not just the competition, but I think there's some really interesting sort of second and third time female directors that are going to really be real discoveries for people in the festival. There is a film that is screening in Sundance first and then coming to us, Josephine from Beth de Arujo, a Brazilian American. Really, she's exciting, super exciting. You spoke about Eva Trobesch. I'm excited for people to see her new film, Home Stories. It's called in English. Teodora Minha has a film which is screening as a special gala, Heysel 85, which is a European co-production about the Heysel Stadium disaster in 1985 with some really interesting European talents. Anka Blonde's film Dust is screening in competition. Very interesting film that I think a good distributor could pick up and do well with. Another filmmaker who's not a European filmmaker, but interesting, newer female filmmaker is Genevieve Delude-Dessel, who is a Canadian, a Quebecoise filmmaker who's got a film called Nina Rosa in competition. Really interesting. So I think all of these breakthrough female directors is something that is going to be a talking point in the festival that I'm really excited about.
And as you say, the second and third film thing is so important, because we often see some great debut female directors and then we never hear from them again, or it just takes so that's great to hear, and they're very exciting. Was there one that got away that you really loved?
No, I honestly can't say. I mean, of course, there are films that we make offers on that go to earlier festivals, but we're really happy with the program. I mean, one thing we did this year, which we will do again, is view films early, because I think that's great. And we saw a few films that are in our competition really early, and we're able to make offers that were compelling on those. So it's good to do that as well too. But we also saw, the last film we invited to competition, I watched a cut on like the 5th of January or the 8th of January. So it's like a viewing year that is almost 12 months actually.
Have you wooed any films away from other festivals?
Well, that happens every year with every festival. I mean, that's very normal. And I don't actually see, I think there's room for all of the bigger festivals to have really great, really important, really impactful programs. So I don't ever see it as a competition. I really genuinely don't. I think each film just needs to find the right place where they're going to get the right airtime and the right space and be positioned in the way that they want. I think we made some offers, and our positioning offer and maybe alignment with the distribution strategy was right. So the film decided to come to us. But yeah, I definitely, I don't see it as being aggressively competitive at all. I think it's just putting your best foot forward. And if the film wants to come to us and it makes sense, then that's great. And overall, I'm really, really proud of our whole lineup. I mean, there's some Forum is fantastic this year. We have a new Haile Garima film, 10-hour, lifelong. He's been working on this his whole life. Obviously, people love and know him from Sankofa. Also, Joko Anwar has a film, Ghost in the Cell, which is in Forum. They're great films in all of the sections, and each section has really lovely, distinct personalities. Competition this year, I spoke about the second and third time female directors, but it's nice to have them against very established filmmakers, Cornel Mundrusko, Karim Ainuz, Anthony Chen, it's really, really Warwick Thornton. So it's a nice mix in the competition.
The diversity of the competition is fantastic. I'm also looking forward to seeing Mamat Salah Haroun's Soon, The Night of the Stars, and he's an incredibly experienced director. I think it's his sixth or seventh film, something like that. And although I know that it is completely made up by the press about where films go, which festivals, but I think his most recent films have been at Cannes, so great to see it earlier in the year in Berlin.
Yeah, his last film, you're right, is in Cannes, Lingui, Sacred Bonds. It's a really exciting film, very beautiful. I mean, if you've seen the still, you've seen how extraordinary it looks. Really rich. Always, he shoots on 35. Beautifully photographed, and also a really magical story about a girl who has powers that she doesn't quite understand until she meets an older woman. It's about sorority. There are actually a few films about sort of friendships between women across great age divides in the festival. There's Mouse, which is screening in Panorama. There is Yo, Love is a Rebellious Bird in competition. Haroun's film also deals with this. It's really, really beautiful. I'm excited about people seeing the film.
You've got some great names to look forward to on the red carpet. Who are you particularly looking forward to bringing to Berlin?
So many stars. I'm a huge Amy Adam fan, so I'm really looking forward to that. But we've got Juliette Binoche, Isabelle Huppert, Lars Eidinger, Sandra Hüller, Charlie XCX. Her film, The Moment, is screening in Panorama, and I think that's going to be a real audience favorite. We're also really looking forward to Sam Rockwell and Juno Temple, Channing Tatum, Gemma Chan. It's going to be a really, really great lineup, fun for audiences.
After 2 years, you're a local now, Tricia, to Berlin. What should international attendees try and make do outside of the festival? What are a couple of recommendations you can give us?
Well, I know it is probably going to be cold, and this will seem like the last thing that people want to do, but walking down Unter den Linden into Mitte is really, really wonderful. It's so beautiful, especially going over the river, over Museum Island. It just makes you realize how beautiful the city is and how many gorgeous buildings there are. So I'd encourage people to get out of the Potsdamer Platz bubble and walk if they can, because things are closer than you realize when you don't live here. I'd also say there's some incredible restaurants to go to, and also out of this area. As soon as you get out of Potsdamer Platz, there are even more. He's probably not going to thank me for saying it, but I'd say Briefmarken Wein, which is Philippe Baubert's wine restaurant in East Berlin, is really, really, really fantastic. And it's got great Italian food and really terrific wine, and it's a beautiful old I think it's an old post office building, hence the name Stamp.
That's a great tip. He's going to have to give you a cut of the profits come early March. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure we could talk about the films and the festival and Berlin and restaurants for hours. But we will. That's for another extended edition. But and what a great conversation that really sort of whet the appetite of every film lover. I love the way festival directors talk about their films, and you love them all, and there's nothing like the care and attention you bring to each one. And thank you to all our listeners, and we hope you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast going behind the scenes of the Berlinale and the lineup with Tricia. Stay tuned to Screen Daily for all our news and reviews from Berlin over the next 10 days. We'll be doing 5 print dailies. We're on the ground. We love Berlin. And please bring us your stories. We want to be part of the making the European film market and the Berlinale really energetic and interesting. Please subscribe and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you to the whole Screen team who put this podcast together, especially podcast producer and editor Ellie Cownan and web editor Orlando Parfit. And please do join us again next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.